Picks and bans for game number 2 on the horizon. I'm going to agree here. I thought the follow-up was... Picks and bans didn't offend me, put it that way. Trifecta, I think, had a fine draft. It's all in the execution. And I think that really kind of... If I'm a player, I think that's a little bit scarier. If you make a mistake in draft and you just get beat up by an Odin and you don't have any leaps, I think it's easier to digest that, identify the problem, fix it, and move on. When you have a fine draft and everything just goes awry, I think that's kind of harder to deal with.
Yeah, definitely, and I really want to see some weird picks from CLG here. I want them to bring the Nox back. I want them to go the Nox Erlang comp that they ran yesterday or whenever they played, and I want to see them just run at Trifecta and be really aggressive.
Well, Trifecta so far have banned out 2 of the problematic picks. The Odin and the Apwash are banned out, making Artio the standout first selection. Jingwei and the Freya banned by CLG. Option over to the blue team, and we'll see where they go.
And I think we could still stand by this Artio having been a relatively safe selection pick choice. Now even more so with that Odin having been banned away and the Alpwash next by side of it. So Trifecta clearly understanding that they had way too many issues in terms of trying to execute their old Game 1 composition into that Odin Alpwash damage. Now with the Artio, if they are expecting Hurriwind to go for that Nox that we've seen so many times before from CLG, I actually wouldn't mind seeing something like a Zeus out of Trifecta.
Yeah, that could be a big power play. CLG right now, you asked for something weird. They're hovering over Guan Yu.
That is weird. We haven't seen him picked at all this LAN. We didn't see him played much throughout the whole season, honestly, because he's been underwhelming. He's a healer, but he's just an underwhelming character right now.
Right now into the Artio. The dash is low impact for Guan Yu and what he wants to do there. Originally, oh man, it was earlier in the season he got touched as far as his cooldowns were concerned, and he was just kind of Uzi healing everybody. But then they brought that back down, and he just disappeared. CLG right here, is there merit? So a pick like Guan Yu, nobody's picking it, nobody's expecting it, you pick it late. Is there a merit to picking him early?
No.
Well,
Yeah.
No.
Not really. Without Odin as a threat to the Guan Yu, I suppose you can be a little bit safer and not really a whole lot of problems as far as like those team fights are concerned. I think Guan Yu is actually kind of nice to have if you already have another healer to help bounce off of him with.
Well, luckily for CLG and their fans, or, you know, people that want to see them win, they don't pick the Guan Yu. They pick Erlang Shen instead, which I think is a much more powerful selection. Cupid going to be alongside him. I don't mind seeing a Guan Yu pick here. If they have a composition and they pick Guan 5th or something, sure, fine. But in no world do I want to see Guan Yu first picked. I think you're just opening yourself up for a draft that's a little bit too tough to really deal with.
But if somebody could pull it off, I would be betting that it's fineokay.
Yes.
This man has so many different god selection choices to go for that I think really helps benefit CLG as a whole, because they're just so wide open in terms of what drafts they could possibly look to make work. And I think that's another problem that Trifecta has been encountering, trying to deal with the CLG squad, is that because CLG can just pick up a god and run with it and understand that they can trust fineokay to execute it efficiently, then it kind of shuts down whenever, or it shuts down the option of not having to worry about those direct counter picks.
fineokay is a new school player. He hasn't been here as long as some of the other people, but he's got a real old school mentality when it comes to that solo lane. That's always been the Swiss Army knife for me. You draft, and then whatever your team needs, the solo will pick it up. Okay, we've got our draft. Everybody's feeling good. We need more crowd control, so pick our Hercules or an Athena. All right, well, we need more damage, so go aggressive, right? CLG here, their solo laner, he's got that option. I think his god pool is extremely deep, and having a solo laner with a very deep god pool, I think, is invaluable.
Yeah, definitely. I hope they pick the Zhonghui again here because it's already looking good for them, but I'm still not sure with this Cupid pick. They're picking it second, they're picking it into just an Artio. Unless this is their game plan going in, they're just like, these guys play Artio, we're just going to play Cupid and farm it.
I mean, Cupid is, Snoopy has played him in the past. Cupid Athena, for what it's worth, is a very deadly combo. You're guaranteeing your heart bombs every single time. So there is something to be talked about there.
Yeah, they definitely do have a strong duo lane pick here. The Cupid Athena into Artio Hachi. I'm pretty sure they out-pressure them, but I'm not sure about the clear.
I don't mind seeing the Cupid so much anymore after watching how Snoopy chose to play it in Game 1. I think that this Fields of Love has been extremely problematic for Trifecta because they have been electing to burn out a lot of their relics, sometimes unnecessarily because they were expecting more follow-up from the Fields of Love.
That's certainly true. Cupid has looked, I think, stronger than you might believe. And I've enjoyed watching what Snoopy's been able to do with the little guy. CLG, second round of bans. No Geb, no Chonga. Trifecta also on the bans. And they might have heard you, Danny. They're going to ban out Nox. They don't want to see it as much as you do. Trifecta, though, they've got one more ban, and that's Jigz. He's thinking about what Trifecta could be banning against them right now. NeiruMah across the way. Heavy in conversation.
Almost curious if Hurriwind might be trying to give Poseidon a go here, something a little bit similar to those rival comps that they actually ended up losing to. But Poseidon and Athena, I think, goes really well together, as well as Cupid's Fields of Love. A great setup for that Kraken.
Yeah, I feel like if they do pick Poseidon here, however, the Pele is just going to be able to run rampant on him. He's going to be able to get on him the second his whirlpool's down and just kill him instantly. Yeah,
that's certainly going to be a thought process for CLG and Trifecta. That last ban, Trifecta still can't figure it out. They've got about 29 seconds. They're going to ban out the Vulcan, keeping that mid lane in mind for CLG. Hurriwind has been a thorn in the side of a lot of teams, and Janus is going to be the choice. The God of Doors comes through for CLG, and they hope that he can open the door to DreamHack. Should be certainly an interesting one. This is not a qualification game. The first two matches we saw were the upper part of the bracket. Obey and Mouse, Obey going on to DreamHack, Space Station Gaming losing out to Rival. And CLG versus Trifecta were on the bottom side. So these teams will not be going to DreamHack immediately. They have to win an additional time after the fact. But the finality that you're looking for, the loser does go home. So a very big match here for both of these teams. Trifecta looking for the Raijin one more time.
Yeah, he's played Raijin and Ola, I think, this tournament, and that's it exclusively. I would like to see it changed up, but if it's his comfort and he's going to it because it's safe, then I understand.
Paul has been such a standout player. We got to see what he was able to do with the Raijin, defending the Titan that first time by himself, killing a couple of players. That's what I need to see here. Trifecta, this needs to be the Paul show. He's got the Raijin that can help out. He's going to have Sam for Soccer on the Pele. That's certainly a good look as well. Trifecta, I think, have the tools here to win the game.
But that's where Mask comes into play on this Erlang Shen. His sole purpose, I think, is to prevent Paul from ever having that Paul effect on the match for Trifecta. I'm also really liking this Janus pickup for Hurriwind because of the disengage effects it'll have against the Pele. Pele wants to immediately burst you down, but Janus kind of prevents you from doing so because he'll just portal away.
Sun Wukong as well. You look to burst Sun Wukong, and he's got the ultimate available to him as well, so he can kind of hang out in the cloud, wait out Pele, and then find an escape by way of the bird. What's your take on these drafts, Danny? I think they're kind of evenly matched. Are they leaning a certain way?
I feel like Trifecta have a really strong early game, especially the mid-jungle. If they can get off to a good start with this Raijin Pele, then I think they'll be able to snowball the game. The solo lane matchup, Baron into some Wukong most likely. The Wukong's just going to have a safe laning phase. He's not going to fight, he's just going to AFK farm and rotate, hopefully.
I'm right there with Danny on this one. I think that for the most part, CLG are just looking to play this a little bit slower at the start. So I want to see Trifecta look to be aggressive early on and try to abuse some of these early game aspects they have going for them.
I agree. Trifecta, they have the draft. Pele and Raijin in the middle lane can combine there. Raijin has some of the better early game clear. I really don't want to look at Pele in the early to mid game. Trifecta are lined up to vape this one out and just turn CLG into smoke. We'll see how this one works out. CLG trying to take it home right here. Casters, bring us to game 2.
Trifecta up against CLG, a potential elimination game for Trifecta, were they to drop it, and CLG a chance to move on up against Mouse. And with their backs against the wall, Trifecta have put Raijin in the hands of their star player and Pele in the hands of Sam for Soccer.
I like this draft from Trifecta, covering a lot of good options. Scary D should have the good momentum to be a bully, I think, against fineokay, but fineokay very accustomed to playing against Baron Samedi. I think earlier this tournament, he played the Sun Wukong, being able to really out-rotate his opponents.
Yeah, the solo lane matchup certainly could be a big one moving into the mid-game once they start rotating around. This Wukong, so you think there's a chance that the Baron could bully him? I mean, Wukong should be able to farm relatively safely.
Well, you have self-sustain on Baron, right?
That's
so
true,
the
yeah.
idea is, once you finish off the Breastplate of Valor, you're just going to be able to bully in between laning phases. fineokay, not interested in that, however. He's going to be able to just clear the wave, proxy between Tier 1 and Tier 2, out-rotate Scary D the same way he did in Game 1.
It's going to be the plan from the Wukong. Over on the dual lane side, Zapman already low. Beads forced out very early on thanks to Horrific and Jigz. Going to keep trading out favorably with those block stacks, and that's immediate lane pressure for the CLG dual lane.
Jake said it better than anyone else could say. I was just admiring that taunt. I've never heard that one before, actually.
Well, Jigz getting plenty of reason to use it here in the dual lane with the way this Athena is playing early, and Zapman without the beads will be that much more vulnerable once a taunt comes online, even a stun from a heart bomb as Neil takes some poke too. The Cupid has really been working for Snoopy.
Oh, it certainly has. Snoopy trading out blows with Zapman as Jigz is starting to intercept some of those basic attacks. Trifecta, keep in mind, have the Baron Bruise all across the board for extra sustain.
And now the Horrific Emblem coming out from Trifecta, their chance to put in a little punishment of their own, and Jigz certainly does drop down low, but it has not discouraged him. He has the dash charged up, and some good damage he's able to put out.
He was just posturing about the dash. There was no way he was actually going to commit there with about 15% health, but instead just trying to heal up a little bit, trying to reconsider when's the appropriate timing to go in for round 2. And with these archers now pushing away at Trifecta's dual lane, I think red buff / purple might be contested.
And this isn't a huge minion wave advantage, so they will be contested here. Zapman rotating over, but Mask will be the first one to get here if he does indeed choose to join. And it looks like with CLG choosing to drop the purple buff, everyone will fall back.
Just grabbing the 2 small purple minions, gave level 2 first to Jigz and Snoopy. It was difficult to really combat them, but now being able to clear out the wave first, CLG should be able to get their entire red and purple buff, allowing Hurriwind and Mask to focus on farming the right side of the map.
And this isn't the first time we've seen CLG play through this dual lane in the early game. We'll see if they're able to get anything more out of it, but if they're able to establish some pressure there, Mask will rotate over and help out with buff invades, with trying to set the dual lane of their opposition behind early on. They've got this Athena, they got the Cupid, and they're outplaying Neil and Zap, at least so far, and it's working for CLG.
Being the lane bullies is a good way to start things off. Once level 5s occur, Jigz and Hurriwind is going to have that global pressure to extend that even further, potentially even assisting out fineokay if Scary D gets overzealous.
And it's double Horrific Emblem here again from these 2 supports. This slow, so early on the game, it's really strong. Not just that, but once you upgrade it later on in the fights, it's nice. So it kind of helps you out at 2 stages of the game, is why we've been seeing it picked up so much.
It's a really good relic, honestly. Transitioning
feel good,
so
yeah.
well. I usually pick this up in the solo lane all the time just to win the 1v1 matchup, but more and more teams now figuring it out how powerful it is in the dual lane to extend this early game lead.
Following along with Sam for Soccer for a while, and we've been seeing maybe less Pele than people would expect as Zapman takes quite a bit of poke, but it's Jigz who might have overcommitted. Sam for Soccer's nearby, and he absolutely will claim the respawn first blood. And look at that speed. He's caught right up to Snoopy. The knockup's there, but it's just not enough for the kill.
Just wants to get off a little bit more poke. Snoopy should sustain himself back up, and a good first blood for Sam for Soccer, getting that first blood bounty.
And not the first time we've seen over-aggression in dual lane punished by an early gank from a jungler. Now, to be honest, I don't know how much Sam was needed. Neil and Zap had that relatively handled. His Mass now in trouble. Tycho Drums is used for damage. They're not enough to pull Mass back in, and Paul can't find the kill, but that does force him back to base.
3 out of 4 shots connected there, and surprised to see Paul not use either the taunt or the fear to disrupt Mask's escape there. He used the mink form just to get, or sorry, the turtle just to get away a little bit, but if you use either of those CC disruptors, well, you cancel out the escape.
Well, Mask is low. He's got to be careful here. Turtle form one more time allows him to reposition, and he has no beads. Neither does Snoopy. So they both have to make sure that they're being careful. But we have a chance to go back and take a look one more time at that respawn first blood to see how Mask was able to grab it.
It was just a great rotation
Or Sam, rather.
to start things off. Sam was able to make his presence felt. I don't think that he was even required. I think Jigz was dead to rights without him, but a good idea to put the jungler with the first blood gold bounty instead of your hunter.
No, I agree. I really do think that Neil and Zapman had that one over on the left-hand side. Jigz getting just a little bit too overzealous, and you saw him taunting in the early game, right? I think they really do feel like they've just been outplaying Trifecta here in the dual lane, and maybe it bit him just a little bit.
And this is where NeiruMah and Artio is going to get a little scary, getting a little bit more levels on the bear swipe. Zap, though, needing to use the beats, used it rather late, needed to use it for the slow immunity.
So he ends up taking all the damage. He doesn't die on the back end. So you're right, as Mask taunts Sam for Soccer back in. Defender of Olympus is there, but it doesn't land in time. Reach almost, but Sam might have been healthy enough to live either way.
Still having to use that ultimate defensively. Not a position Sam for Soccer wants to be in. Should sustain off of those back left camps now, though, and keep himself relevant in the farming category. Scary D gets rooted in place, but CLG not wanting to aggress onto him, instead are content with just being able to take away the blue.
And you saw Hurriwind committed his ultimate there as well. They really wanted to find Sam for Soccer in the jungle if they could. They just couldn't lock him down long enough. Like you said, the ultimate was really what was key there for Sam to be able to put enough distance between himself and Jigz and Mask.
Now, Hurriwind was very close to finding that through space and time ultimate. He's going to be that wild X card factor that Trifecta have to worry about. Janus players are always there.
Two-man taunt from Jigz, but he's the one in trouble. And now Trifecta have opened up some space for the red buff. Snoopy nearby, but not going to be able to come in anywhere near in time. Buff secured by Trifecta, and a small advantage they've started to build.
Not going to be looking for anything too bold or ambitious beyond that little play. Just going to step it backwards as we're approaching a little bit after the 6-minute mark. Game 1 was rather slow, Finch. There was no kills on the board. In fact, a Goal Fury went down at the 10-minute mark of Game 1. Game 2, still rather slow with only 1 kill for Trifecta. Both of these teams knowing what's on the line.
And that first blood bounty, about all that separates these two teams, really, as they've been able to stay very, very close between the two of them. CLG look as though they want to try and have a fight here with these mid-harpies. Paul at least wants to contest, but he will step up no further. A ward there from Hurriwind, so they certainly knew he was there. Just considering maybe going in.
A little bit of mind games, throwing the portal there, trying to see how Paul would react to it, whether he would Thunder Crash away or otherwise, but just holding his ground, figuring things out on the right side mid-camp. It's those little plays where you're trying to trick your opponent by baiting an ability unnecessarily. You bait out the Thunder Crash, well, without an escape, then you can make a real all-in commit and maybe force out the beats, force out the taiko drums.
A grouping from CLG. They've got some aggressive wards. Two-man pin into the taunt. It only hit Sam for Soccer, but beads from Paul and from the jungler both come out. Sam has to ult away defensively, but Paul's putting out good damage with the taiko drums.
The counter ultimate being used, but Scary D takes out Hurriwind in the backline. Jigz is next to fall. He couldn't get that ultimate off. fineokay was considering diving out Paul there, but he doesn't have his ultimate to drop the decoy and absorb those tower shots.
This is so different from that patience and the meticulousness we saw from CLG in Game 1. They really are just trying to brute force fights in the jungle, and they do have warding down, so they had some information, but they just could not clean that one up.
It was a good engage originally with a good double pin from Mask, but he couldn't get the ultimate off to Paul and Sam for Soccer. Only catching Sam for Soccer. Paul was able to Thunder Crash away into safety.
Mask going in on 2, but he had Jigz right there with them. That sets up the kill onto Hurriwind as they tried to steal the red buff. Fields of Love to lock down Neil and the Heart Bomb as well. But the Artio able to reposition. CLG only find 1.
A 1-for-0. Sam for Soccer trying to be aggressive. Does strip away the red buff. No one from CLG able to pick that one up. So could give an edge to Zapman that's been quietly farming away. Going for a very safe build this time with the Devo Gloves.
It definitely helps Counter Logic Gaming that Trifecta overstepped just a little bit around that red buff, and CLG have a ward even there. So they certainly knew they were being aggressed on and could come in to make for the defense. That's Mask working together with Jigz for the extra defense and to drop that Defender of Olympus in the middle of the fight.
And I like that NeiruMah is kind of sitting in this lane now, because the way game number 1 progressed, Zapman was struggling with his positioning, so there needs to be more catering to this dual lane. Goal Fury could even be looked at if they have a lead like that and get off more additional picks, but it's not going to be the case quite yet, going for the little baby oracles instead.
Now this dual lane has fallen a little bit behind, just a little bit, in terms of experience from Jigz and Snoopy. Despite how well those first couple of waves, those first few minutes of the game were going for them, and Jigz able to get on some good aggression, it's now Zapman and Neil who seem rather comfortable about a level up.
It's very true. Paul yet again doing the same identical build with the Book of Thought Rush. Hurriwind finishing off the boots first, wanting that cooldown reduction between the Mage's Blessing and Shoes of Focus, having 20% CDR, but doesn't have the same magical power with the Book of Thoth. Almost finished off stacking that completely as Paul.
Yeah, we often talk about Janus as one who might not have as much damage to get from a lot of other mages. And we saw Ven playing it earlier today. Even though they didn't win, he had a lot of damage. As Jigz finds a nice two-man taunt through space and time, does hit Sam for soccer, so does the portal, and that's enough to force out the beads from the jungler, but Sam is still A-okay.
A good win, I would say, for CLG, forcing out the beads there. 150 seconds now. Could be the window CLG need to take out Trifecta's jungler. A little skirmish between these soul laners on the right side of the map. No one getting the better end of that one. We're seeing Breastplate of Valor now being worked at from Scary D. Surprised to see him go for the Void Stone first, considering that he's against a Sun Wukong and an Erlang Shen jungler. He's more worried about the damage potentially coming from Hurriwind.
That is a bit curious. He elected to go for this one early, but so far he's not really been punished for it. In fact, 1-0-1, a good game for Scary D, so can't knock it if it's working. Sam for Soccer electing for the Glad Shield. Something we've actually seen a little bit less, I feel like, in Pele builds, though it was the original path, as Scary D, just when we mention him, is now in trouble. He does find the heal, but it's nowhere near enough to get him away from 4.
And that's going to allow Zapman to look for a 1v1 play onto Snoopy, recognizing that Jigz used that ultimate on the right side of the map. No pressure on his side. Getting the better end of Snoopy thus far, not matching him in the level category, but still surpassing him in the health department simply because of those Devo gloves.
A big help for Snoopy here in this matchup, but I feel like we haven't seen quite as much Pele here in this tournament as even I would have expected. Pele has been so strong here so far, but she actually hasn't been getting valued quite as much as you might have expected. So far, we've been seeing a little bit less of her, but also we're seeing a good bit of her at least here in this game. Right now, though, Trifecta falling back just for now. The game pace has slowed down just a little bit to try and give some time for these two teams to catch back up in terms of farm, at least in relation to one another.
Yeah, it's 12 minutes in, Finch. It's still, they're still both figuring out what's the appropriate timing to get this goal, Fury. 2 minutes ago last game, CLG felt confident to do so, but not quite yet. Zapman forced the Iajitsu away. Heart Bomb does connect, doesn't want to get stunned out, forced to go into the beats.
And Snoopy did not have the Fields of Love there, which probably would have been enough to close that one out if he could have kept going. So Zapman drops the Purification Bead, survives the 1v1 for now, but these two hunters have been at each other's throats.
They definitely have. We were talking about it in the beginning of game number 1, the rivalry between these two players, and it hasn't slowed down.
Just barely able to make it out of the Fields of Love. There's the Mounted Archery, but the Mink form coming right for him. I don't know if Zapman recognized the damage is good on the Snoopy, and that means Sam for Soccer can make it 1-for-1. Through space and time was used, but no one's actually coming through the portal.
No, not quite yet, at least. So Zapman trading out for Snoopy. Very iconic between these two hunters with how similarly matched they are.
Defender of Olympus coming out, but they did not want to die for Neil. And probably the right call. Sam for Soccer was still very much nearby. Could have used the knockup for the disruption and cut that off. So instead, they'll just fall back. But these two hunters, man, you're right. They really have been going at each other for so long at this point, and both trying to make it towards the same goal, showing that they absolutely still have it here at this point.
And it's surprising to see that they want to be this aggressive, knowing that they still have a long way to go before they finish off their stacks. About, what is this, 37 more stacks for Snoopy, 50 or so stacks for Zapman. That's a lot of waves before he gets a real big power spike. Now working on what could be an executioner for Zap.
Pace has not slowed down in the dual lane. Snoopy moving into the jungle. I don't know if he recognizes that Sam is also here. Fields of Love has to be expended immediately, but Sam uses the ultimate to catch up. Volcanic Lightning, but Beads and Aegis get him away from the knockup, and so Snoopy survives, but at the cost of everything he had.
Man, he was just kind of checking around the corner, looking at his inventory. He didn't have any concern.
Hurriwind still has the...
So it's not as if he was warding either. He was just kind of spotting around the corner, and he walks into almost a death trap. Both soul laners dropping their ultimates there, and that's going to allow fineokay to steal away the blue buff. Trading the ultimate for a blue buff. This is what soul laners do at the end of the day. There's not much else to go on.
Yeah, especially when these two haven't rotated a ton. Trifecta has brought some fights over near the soul lane side to help out for Scary D, but essentially that's about as exciting as it's been for them throughout the first 14.5 minutes. And they're probably feeling pretty good about it, right? Like, yeah, I got him to use his ultimate. I got the blue, yeah.
I mean, both of them have cooldown reduction at the end of the day, 20% to be exact. So it doesn't matter, I think, to use it there. I think if the next team fight occurs, it'll be back up momentarily as Gold Fury is now being looked at. 4 members here from Trifecta are thinking about it.
And certainly posturing as if they are. Mask and Snoopy are both around, though, so it would not be free for them, and it looks like Trifecta aren't going to start trying to pull this one, at least not just yet. But so far, Sam has looked good on the Pele. Still a bit behind Mask in terms of experience, but he's made several strong gank attempts and forced out relics. Neil might be in trouble, though.
Oh, the taunt actually prevents the damage coming through. Zapman dismounted on top of the portal, forced to use the purification beads there. Sanford Soccer, between a rock and a hard place, is returning a lot of damage.
He was looking for Hurriwind, but it's Paul who finds Jigz. fineokay just barely makes it up onto the cloud, but now where can he land? He gets pulled right back in. Great play from Paul, and Zapman cleans him up. 2 quick kills, and why not start the goal?
Using the taunt of the taiko drums, Paul able to bring fineokay back after landing from the somersault cloud, and that's going to be Trifecta's very first Gold Fury of the set.
That's right. Up till now, it's been largely CLG dominating, but a good fight here around this Gold Fury has kind of opened the door. Snoopy, maybe with a chance if he can actually get the stun. Looks like not enough passive so far. Zapman trying to win the trade, but Snoopy gets the solo to at least get something back for CLG.
No beads. Aegis, I think, just now came off cooldown for Zap, so he wasn't able to find that one either. It was a good opportunity for Snoopy.
Mass now being dove under the tower. Neil is going to drop down Horrific Emblem and Thunder Crash. Sets up Neil to clean the kill. Now CLG have got to fall back. There's been some skirmishes after this Gold Fury that makes it 1-for-1 between Zapman and Mask.
Mask D's really making these rotations to be fruitful. 4 assists, 1 kill now. Part of 5 of his team's 7 kills, and I like what he's been able to bring on this Baron Samedi.
And this was always going to be a tough, grueling set between these two teams. Like you said, a lot of history. They're very close in terms of skill level, and Jigz is very close to the end of his life as he gets pulled back into the coffin, and Paul is able to take his life.
It's little plays like that, when you know the Athena's dash is down, that you can capitalize on. That wasn't just Scary D making the call. That was a team collective unit waiting for Jigz to wrap around the corner, knowing that the ability was not available.
Trifecta really has turned things around this game, but they're really not that far out in front. Maybe about 1,700, 1,800. It's a nice beginning of a lead, but it's not so much that CLG can't fight in. The experience virtually even, though you can see with these charts, it has been kind of up and down. Right now, CLG can feel very much still in this.
You're totally right, Finch. I don't expect Trifecta to start forcing any Fire Giants anytime soon with this little bit of a lead. CLG are just waiting patiently here. The late game, I don't think necessarily favors either one too much more than the other. Looking at the two differences, Pele versus Erlang Shen. A lot of ability damage from Sanford Soccer, whereas Mask got those basic attacks rolling through. Looking at the difference between the supports, both of them have a lot of control aspect, but the difference is the solo laners. I'm looking at fineokay's ability to dive the backline, and that's going to be easier to do than Scary D that's playing this Mage Baron.
Trifecta, considering the Pyromancer. Mask is at least nearby, but it's really fineokay who's going to get to this one first. The whole rest of Trifecta here, they want this as Jigz taunts Paul away. There's a pin, and they force out the beads through space and time, clips him as well, so Paul is forced to leave the fight.
But look at the patience from her when he knows somebody's about to be coming through the portal, and there he goes. Scary D now in a world of trouble, forced to sprint away. NeiruMah going to stun out fineokay. Heart Bomb now being transported by NeiruMah, going to get stunned out as well. CLG are the ones to do the Pyromancer.
So they could come back towards the objective, but Trifecta not going to let it go for free. Scary D trying to contest. Counter Logic Gaming are the ones that get the Pyromancer, but at the fight afterwards, Psycho Drums is doing good damage to fineokay, who has to go up into the cloud. Snoopy low on the back end as well, and Aegis not enough. Sanford Soccer is the one that finds the kill.
The backline penetration from Trifecta is too much for CLG to handle. Sanford Soccer really making the statement there. Scary D even able to get in the thick of things alongside NeiruMah blinking into the action. And I don't know about this play, Trifecta. This is bold.
Yeah, this might feel like a bit of a bait, and I think Mask is the one they really want. Sam cleaned him up as well. A killing spree for the Pele now, who's 4-1-5. And now maybe a chance to look at the FG, though. fineokay is right here.
He is spotted and identified exactly where he is. A good sentry ward from CLG to be able to clear out some vision coming out of Trifecta. And you're totally right. That Finch, that was just a bait. That Fire Giant felt a little bit too ambitious, but with Mask being right around the corner, you bait him for even a little bit of a half step, and that overstep was just enough to find the kill.
And I don't know what more you can ask from Sam and Paul throughout this entire tournament. I mean, these two have played so tremendously well, and these are the call-ups, you know, from the minor league that have really, I think, stepped into these big shoes that the SPL requires from you sometimes, and they've looked so consistent and so strong.
They have 6 of their team's 10 kills, 9 assists combined between them, and only 1 death combined. So I think that these are your two outperforming stars out of Trifecta.
That's fair to say, as Zapman uses mountain archery to get away from the taunt. Avoids Fields of Love too, so that's great positioning. Snoopy too low, Defender of Olympus won't even finish, and Zapman finds the kill, though he does have Hurriwind and Mask coming to join the fray.
Not wanting to aggress any further. If they overcommit this far deep on the left side, he could be giving stuff up on the right. But with Zapman being here, Fire Giant would be a little bit too ambitious for Trifecta. Gold Fury due to respawn in less than 10 seconds. That's the objective the Order side want.
Absolutely. This is what can take the small lead we've been talking about right around the 2,000 gold mark and start pushing it into a real lead. And this time, CLG won't even be around to try and defend this Gold Fury earned after Zapman's play in duo, and it bumps Trifecta's lead up to 3,700 gold.
This is a complete 180 of what CLG were doing in game number 1 with how patient they were, with how methodical about objectives. Their composition doesn't scream about playing aggressive every step of the moment. They have plenty of opportunities to reset fights, knowing that Snoopy has those Cupid hearts for the sustain, knowing that Hurriwind has so much mobility that he can provide for his teammates through space and time, the threshold, but instead, CLG are just forcing the issue too hard.
It's been very curious. You're right, Tully, and I'm starting to wonder if something has even changed potentially in game 1, or if maybe that slow pace wasn't deliberate, as they do get the beads out from Paul thanks to the taunt. And that's a nice win for CLG. That's what this comp is good at, right? Forcing your relics slowly, patiently, and then re-engaging between the Fields of Love and the taunt and this Erlang Shen.
We'll see how it goes for CLG, knowing that's not available for Paul for another 140 seconds. Red buff will be secured from CLG. Trifecta not interested, knowing that Paul is not even close to the vicinity.
At least not for now. Snoopy starting to build his trademark build path. Jotuns, I imagine that will be the Odysseus's bow next. It's something he's been doing all tournament. Zapman building rather normal, you know, with like executioners and kin size and things that are, you know, that hunters build.
I mean, Odysseus bow is not too shabby. And if you're going for a physical power or cooldown reduction build such as Snoopy,
that's right,
you might as well top it off with the Jotun's Wrath. Let's be real here.
And that's how he's been building them, because he is playing those like ability-based hunters, right? Like we saw it on, I think, Chiron as well. So if he's going to be constantly throwing out abilities in the fight, and then the Odysseus bow to sort of top off that attack speed, it's certainly been working for Snoopy.
In a perfect world where you're constantly getting off basic attacks, Zapman's build is better. But in a realistic world where Snoopy doesn't have time to just sit there and basic attack anyone in the front line, he has to throw out abilities, reposition himself, throw out some hearts, reposition himself. So he might as well get that cooldown reduction and be more cost-effective and over the course of a team fight.
And that's right, and he's keeping his team topped off with those hearts to a certain extent, getting off the Fields of Love more often, getting out those heart bombs more often. So far, it's been working for CLG, though. If they can't close out this game, they'll also have their backs against the wall. Remember, we are down in the lower bracket. These are elimination games for whoever ends up dropping, the winner moving on to play up against Mouse.
It's going to be a difficult match for either of these two teams. Mouse looked very strong against Obey Alliance in their previous set to start off day number 5 of HRX placements, and Trifecta looking like they're getting closer and closer to getting to that end game form, but they haven't really got the momentum they need to start dominating in the sense of the Fire Giants.
Zapman now has his beads taken away. Through space and time committed as Neil lands the stun on the several members. Life of the party to try and pull everyone back in. Jigz the target, but Sam has Hurriwind underneath the tower. Zapman gets Jigz as well. Now fineokay left a bit isolated, has to go up onto the cloud, but Trifecta winning this fight front to back.
A 2-for-0 trade after the through space and time. It was an instant collapse. That's an important ability to reserve in case a team fight goes south, not to maybe force it out that early in the engagement and get a pick onto Zapman.
Yeah, that play, it felt like was a low percentage one, right? I
Yes.
think it's kind of what you're getting at. So hold on to it to get your team the most value. And now Trifecta burning through the Fire Giant. Mask is here. The pin has a chance. Trifecta, though, confirmed the Fire Giant, but it was very close.
I mean, the chances that Mask was going to steal that is like less than 1% chance.
So
but
low.
The timing of that javelin toss and when the notification popped off, I had to double check to make sure that it was indeed Trifecta securing it. And good try from Mask, and Trifecta now have control of this game, could look to start getting some tier 2 towers.
fineokay, a bit by himself in the jungle. Snoopy's coming to his aid. Well, I don't know how much he should engage here as Sam is battling it out with Mask, but Scary D has the coffin. Mask is brought down almost to nothing just from Scary D, and Sam for Soccer's happy to clean it
Oh,
up.
I don't know how else he can get away from this. Jigz is going to be in a world of hurt. Good knock up the root as well, getting body blocked to high heaven. A second kill for Sam for Soccer, now with a 5-on-3. Snoopy's next on the chopping block.
He's been stunned out, Paul Mez, but Zapman comes in and finishes the kill off. A killing spree now for the Hachiman player at Zapman for Trifecta. They've grabbed the tier 1 and left, and the tier 2 in both side lanes being threatened.
And I don't see how fineokay and Hurriwind can really defend this. They have to figure out the Phoenix defense, but Trifecta are barreling down the left side and the right side. Mask, Jigz, and Snoopy dead for still a long time.
And Hurriwind's got to run away. This is not going to be easy. Trifecta continuing to split the map and threaten the right and left lanes. At the same time, Paul removes Hurriwind. That's the delete button that he just pushed. We'll see you later.
Those are the plays Paul makes in ranked and in the minor league, showing everyone off. Day 5 set against CLG in the second game, keeping their dreams still alive.
Absolutely, man. Paul and Sam for Soccer, I don't know how many times we got to say it, but these guys just continually perform for Trifecta. I think it is a little bit easier when Pele is allowed. It seems as if sometimes these teams just forget about her, and Trifecta pick it up and make it look very strong. Gold Fury now going to add to the fire. That's a Phoenix, 2 tier 2s, and the objective.
Yeah, this is a 16,000 gold lead now, Finch. Trifecta
Oof.
are just dominating in 26 minutes of play, trying to figure out the right way to close this out to extend the series into a game 3. And if you're CLG, you got to be questioning about how they started off this game. The transition was very weird considering game number 1 was just so clean and methodical.
Those are all the words I was using to describe them, but this game was anything but. They were forcing fights in Trifecta's jungle where they didn't really have any kind of clear-cut advantage. It just looked like they were looking to scrap for no real reason. And Trifecta this game has been able to just kind of sit back and respond, and even when they're not, Sam for Soccer is pressing the issue in these side lanes. This was a much better game from Trifecta.
We haven't talked about NeiruMah too much, but he's been quite the force to deal with. I think since the beginning of the laning phase, we saw how aggressive Jigz and Snoopy was, but a lot of that was countered by NeiruMah's positioning, the timing of his abilities, hitting both Jigz and Snoopy and the entire wave. There wasn't much that CLG can really get from this Artio.
The last remaining tier 2 tower has been brought down. It's the mid Phoenix that will be looked at. Not very many minions to worry about on the left-hand side, but Hurriwind lurking on the left. He's looking through space and time into the fight as Trifecta have already dived the Phoenix.
Well, let's see how this goes now. Forced a little bit of a disengage out of Trifecta. Middle Phoenix still relatively healthy as Paul uses that percussive storm. Right side Phoenix being looked at by Sam for Soccer, trying to pull a 4-1 split.
Trying to defend. There's the through space in time. It does hit Scary D, and already mounted archery is out from Zapman. Fields of Love only hits Paul, and Mask brought quite low, but there's Scary D, bringing everybody back in with the coffin. Jigz locked down, and Scary D gets the kill. Paul finds Mask. Sam removes Snoopy just like that. 3 members down.
And that's going to be probably game number 2. Finch Trifecta got the left side Phoenix, getting the middle one. All 5 members are very healthy.
Trifecta, 5 members strong. Only 2 up from CLG to try and defend. fineokay does find the nice knockup. They're going to chase the Sun Wukong, but they've got the lockdown for it. Sam takes care of the monkey, and Hurriwind, he's pretty good at Smite, but not this good. Trifecta take game 2. They take down the Titan, and we're on our way to a game 3.
A good turnaround play from this squad. Hurriwind is going to be the last victim due to Zapman's hands. Game number 3, here we come.
Yeah, Trifecta absolutely earned this one, and they played better than we saw from them in game 1. But for me, the real headline here is some questionable plays from CLG throughout that early to mid game. I gotta wonder if they just need to take a deep breath and regroup as a team. The way they played was so methodical in game 1, it felt like a different team.
It definitely did. I think they need to consider about giving up the Pele also to Sanford Soccer. That performance was really well executed. The way he rotated in that laning phase in the dueling, the way he was able to put a lot of pressure in the mid lane as well. Sanford Soccer was just a little bit too much to handle that time.
Yeah, definitely got out of control. Paul also was a force in that game playing on the Raijin. They didn't have much of an answer to him. And Trifecta look vastly improved in that one. CLG now with the backs against the wall, they absolutely have got to find a way to regroup and make some adjustments here. Picks and bans, certainly a place to start, but that early game decision making too.
And I think they had opportunities if they wanted to. They had global pressure between Hurriwind on the Janus, also Athena here for Jigz, but they never took that over to the soul lane, right? Like Baron Samedi here for Scary D was left unchecked the entire time.
Well, that is the second game that goes in favor of Trifecta and CLG. Let's get it back over to the desk for the analysis.
Thanks a lot there, John. Thanks a lot there, Anatoly, Tom, and Fails, and Taco. Breaking down game number 2. Stretching it out to a third game, Trifecta did what a lot of people thought was unthinkable.
The Paul project was game 2. Paul absolutely dominated on this Raijin pick. I think that Trifecta did a great job playing setup man just so Paul could be the star of the show.
Smite Paul League. We hear the fans out there, and he is listening. 4-0-10 on the mid lane, Raijin. In order for Trifecta to win, I said in no uncertain terms that, Paul's got to step up, and, well, he did that.
Yeah, I feel like Sam and Paul both stepped up this game, and they carried this game, honestly. Sam sat in duo, he killed Snoopy multiple times, killed Jigz multiple times, and Scary D's Baron rotations were really good as well, killing Jigz off.
I mean, look at the damage done here. 12,000 for the Hunter. Snoopy just wasn't able to get involved.
Snoopy was definitely, he didn't really have the same sort of impact on this Cupid. We never really saw that same level of hard CC from Snoopy with the Fields of Love. And not only that, but I think that it was also a lot more awkward this time around for CLG in terms of trying to execute their composition, because when you have a Janus, you're not really going to be relying on that Janus for the all-in burst execution. I think that's where the Hunter has to start trying to come into play here, but Paul was not allowing Snoopy to do that.
Paul was controlling the game with not just his area denial, but also his damage. 25,000, as you can see on the post-game stats brought to us by Access Replay. And the replays really kind of speak for themselves here. Paul just maintained his ability to be in the lane, out of the lane, and make sure the opposition couldn't do what they wanted.
Yeah, these banana bongo drums were doing so much damage to the CLG team, and they just couldn't handle it. He literally doing most of their HP on the carries just from all 4 shots.
And look at this. This is also what I like about Paul, is that he understands that sometimes you have to be the guy. And we talk about over-aggression, but there's also something to be said about that calculated aggression. He needs to get that kill. He needs to go into the Titan room and murder that player, and that's exactly what he does.
When you miss the percussive storm and you still have the player confidence to go straight into the taiko drums for the kill, that says a lot. And here, Trifecta, this is kind of their momentum swing back into their favor. And now it's up to Trifecta, I think, to try and maintain this same level of energy into Game 3. But I'm not too certain that's going to be the easiest thing to do, because CLG are undoubtedly probably going to be taking a look towards stripping away this Raijin from Paul.
Yeah, CLG heading into this next game really needs to switch up their draft. I want to see more aggressive comp, because I said before this game, if Trifecta come out, they play aggressive early, then they're going to win, and that's exactly what they did.
Counterlogic Gaming right now, they need to try and bounce back, but Trifecta, they're kind of the underdog here. I think CLG are the ones that are expected to go on. If you're on Trifecta, you heard Taco say it, it's all about momentum. 1, would you agree? And 2, if you're on Trifecta, how do you keep that momentum?
I feel like they just play their game how they've been playing this game. Like,
oh, look at this replay.
It's so much damage as Pele, it's ridiculous. Like, if you win this second game, you get so much momentum, and you put such a deepener and sad moment for CLG.
Really important stuff as far as the mental game is concerned, because I mean we've said a number of times, everyone agrees that the mechanical differences between players is so small. You have these standout players like Paul, for example, that can absolutely throw everybody for a curveball, but everybody else is generally around the same level. it gets to the point where you have to start outthinking your opponent.
And Sam on this Pele, not only was he going for good target selection by choosing to try and burst out the carries, but anytime one of his own carries were being threatened, he would typically try to turn and look to assist them as best as possible. I think that that's something that you don't always tend to see in junglers, because normally that's just not their responsibility. And as a jungler, it can be very difficult to try and micromanage the team fights in that aspect, but I think Sam did a fantastic job through the set of really utilizing that lead he built up.
Yeah, I feel like whether you're peeling or whether you're diving their backline is really god dependent, and different junglers, especially in EU, have different playstyles. So you'll have someone like Cherio, when he was a jungle, he'd play Guardians, he'd try and kill their backline, but then he'd come back and peel. Whereas a player like me, a player like Twigs, is more likely to just dive the backline and go ham, basically.
And when we look at what we're seeing out of Trifecta, what do you notice out of these two junglers? Mask has a style, and across the way, Sam does as well.
Yeah, I think they're both really aggressive players, and it was nice to see Sam play more back and not just dive. He came back, he helped his team, and ultimately helped them win.